the events calendar. So maybe I'll just very quickly pull that out. Okay, so over here, if you take a look at the events calendar, this week, dollar side of things, right? We primarily only have the let me see, the core PCE price index over here, right? We probably only have this that may give us some volatility in the dollar itself. But other than that, dollar wise, there's not much of a news. We do have a little bit of an Australia CPI coming in Wednesday. We have a bit on the Canadian side of things on Friday, right? Labor market. But other than that, nothing much. Okay. So with that saying, that's on the dollar index. Okay, we'll just give it until tomorrow, see how it's gonna develop from there. Now on euro dollar, okay, kind of potentially inverse of the dollar index. Right now, there is a good potential that we may get a diagonal crawl over here. Okay, of course, the possibility is either gonna be, as I mentioned, a little bit of a double top with the breakdown, or what we can get is the market to drop a little bit, and then from there you can still push back up to give us the completion of a diagonal before the bigger move down. For me, looking at this structure here, I'm not too keen to be buying at this very moment. Okay, I would say short term, I'm still primarily looking for that sell opportunity. I'll just wait for the setup to come to me, right? If we kind of get a nice little push down, if this breaks out of the trend line structure, then you can wait for a corrective pullback to take the next sell move. Alternatively, of course, if this comes down correctively, then you want to maybe wait out for one more pushback up. Okay, you either look for an aggressive sell at the top, or you wait for another confirmation for this to break first impulsively, and then you trade the retracement back down. Okay, so definitely different. There are different approaches in which you can actually look to get involved in the trade. Okay, the overall direction on the euro side for this week, primarily we're still going to be focusing on the sell side of things. Okay, so that's on the euro. Pound dollar is actually more or less the same. Pound dollar right now is basically testing the fit zone. Okay, between the 100% and 127. Okay, so we're basically still testing that. We're still waiting for the market to give us a bit more of a confirmation push to the downside, right? We won't wait for the impulsive drop. Now, alternatively, if you're a bit more aggressive, you can drop down to the lower time frame, like the H1 over here. Okay, and we can start to identify potential minor swing lows for aggressive sell breakout as well, right? So for example, on the H1 over here, we can take this reference low. If we can get an impulsive break, right? This low here is somewhere around 1.26. If we can get an impulsive break on the lower time frame below 1.26, that may be also a potential sell trade. Okay, so pound dollar over here, we're also looking at sell opportunity, mainly for this week because of this particular pattern over here. We are in a fit zone. We're expecting some kind of reaction to the downside. Okay, so short term, we're also expecting that sell. Okay, quite similar to the euro. Okay, the pattern structure may be slightly different, but both of this, we're essentially looking at a sell trade direction. Okay, next up we have the Aussie. Okay, which is basically quite similar, right? In terms of like what is the structure pattern that we're looking at right now. The euro, the pound, as well as the Aussie dollar, pretty much giving us similar kind of pattern structure. Okay, so nothing is confirmed yet because right now we don't really see some sign of a rejection to the downside at the moment. Okay, you want to give it a bit more time, but I would say I'm not too keen on looking at a buy at where the current market price is. Okay, but if we can get a pullback, maybe in the future, somewhere lower here, that will be another potential buy. Okay, but for now, I'm be very much more interested to see if we can get a reversal set up. Okay, so over here, if you go to the hourly, right, same thing. We don't really see some sign yet. I would like to see kind of like a little impulsive drop following a correction here. Then I would say you can take the breakout trade to the downside for itself. Okay, so the major pairs in terms of euro, pound, as well as Aussie seems to give us quite similar overall structure, right? We're kind of getting this kind of pattern development. which I call a crawl, right? And of course, if you put in your RSI indicator, you're basically looking at divergences developing too, right? So you can see over here, divergences are building up, okay? Bringing you to euro dollar as well. Okay, the divergence are building up, right? Pound dollar, we do see the divergence build up as well, right? So a couple of these three major pairs, right? Definitely, I would say, uh, the high probability direction is to the downside. Okay, but of course, it's nothing confirmed. There's no 100% certainty. So wait for the setup to come to you if you're looking to sell. Okay, so these are the three opportunities from the major pairs side of things, right? Then we have the dollar Canadian. Okay, dollar Canadian, I'm a little bit neutral at the moment because last week we did see the market actually make a move lower. We did break this low. We did tag this area over here. Okay, but it doesn't really mean that we're likely just gonna see the bounce, right? Because this can still come back down and develop into a bigger crawl before that move out, right? Fit wise, okay, if I'm gonna bring in the Fibonacci over here, okay, in terms of measuring the equal harmonic move, right? We haven't really tagged it yet, right? So that's where I'm saying that we may potentially get maybe a little bit more dip to the downside towards 1.3580 before that bounce, okay? So I would personally give it maybe up to mid-week. Anyway, for dollar news, we have the core PC price index, and then for the Canadian side of things on Friday, we have the Canadian labor market data, right? So there's no need to rush, I think, for dollar Canadian. We can potentially leverage on the news catalysts coming in from PCE price index as well as the Canadian labor market data to seek out for opportunities on the dollar CAD. Okay, so for dollar CAD right now, we'll see. Okay, if we can get a crawl, then of course we'll be looking for the swing trade to the upside. Um, Other than that, we'll see. We need to definitely see how the market's going to develop from here first. Okay, so that's on dollar CAD. Dollar yen over here, quite interesting. Last week we're essentially looking at an impulsive drop, and then we expect corrective pull for another sell. The push up last week were pretty aggressive. Okay, so right now I think what we're looking at is there's a good potential where this may develop into maybe a deeper true structure. Okay, if I bring in at 618, that opens up a little bit more downside here as well. So again, this is a little bit early to measure, but depending on where the price is likely going to react, okay, we may be seeing a potential 1-2 trade, then only the sell, right? So long term, the bigger picture direction on the dollar yen, I'm still very much bearish, right? I'm still very much interested in the big picture sell on the dollar yen stuff things. But I think in the short run, from a week to week trading perspective, there might be some opportunity for a bullish opportunity. If we can get a setup and more confirmation around that 50 and 618 Fibonacci. So what I want to see ideally is this starts to do a crawl, right? If this does a crawl around that 50 and 618 Fib, then that will be a short-term buy trade with a target. You can use that 100% fit measurement over here, which will bring you somewhere around 150.7. Okay, so there is an opportunity on the dollar yen as well, but this one here will probably give it another 2 days. Maybe on Wednesday we come back, we can see a crawl in the key area. That would give us a buy opportunity. Okay, so that's on the dollar yen side of things. Gold, definitely bullish. Fundamentally, longer term picture perspective, even on the lower time frame like the H4 right now, the charts are suggesting bullish, right? The only thing, of course, right now is the market is still at a high price, right? So from the structure point of view, you probably don't want to get involved at the very, very top, right? So my take here is to wait for the pullback. Ideally, the pullback should come in corrective. It should come in slow, okay? And right now, I'm using a simple 50 and 618 Fibonacci. If you can get a three-wave corrective pullback towards that zone, that would be a potential buy. Now, for me, I don't think we're going to get a buy setup within this week, okay, because we're on a forward time frame. If we want a corrective retracement back towards the 50 and 618, we'll definitely need to give the market sufficient time to develop, okay, and based on some time expectation over here, I don't think the structural setup is going to complete within the week itself, okay. So there's something that you probably want to just put it aside, maybe come back next week, okay. At least from a swing trade point of view, the setup would probably take some time to build up, okay. Crude oil, okay, crude oil over here, short term, we're expecting a bit of a push up to give us, at least a completion of a WXY structure, okay, and from there, maybe this would give us another move down. So crude oil, I'm not really kind of like convicted to this particular idea over here, because this pullback, okay, this pullback last week, is not one of the clearest structure pattern development, right? So we are short-term bullish, okay, but definitely this is not a very high conviction trade idea itself, okay. So this one, if you don't really trade crude oil, I think nothing really significant there. If you're kind of trading crude oil actively, okay, then you can keep an eye on this potential to the upside. But again, we need some sign of confirmation now. We don't really get that, right? We can't get a little bounce here on 618 pips last week, but the market basically pulled back and kind of recover everything from there, right? So yeah, this one here, again, I don't really like how the pattern is developing, okay, but the primary forecast is basically still a three-wave WXY, so we're expecting short-term potentially back towards $80 and around 15 cents, right? Okay, S&P general equities, whether it's S&P, NASDAQ, or Dow Jones, I think generally we're bullish. But short-term wise, we're seeing a little bit of a divergence. Of course, this kind of structure pattern seems to suggest retracement. So similar to gold, long-term bullish, no reason to be selling it. But based on price area right now, you don't want to be buying at the very top. Okay, so simply wait for the pullback. Ideally, the pullback should come down correctively. So same thing with gold. I don't think we're gonna get a setup within the week itself. You probably just want to be patient, okay, and wait until maybe next week, and then you come back on to this, okay. Couple of yen pairs. So we have the pound yen here. Pound yen on the swing trade perspective, there's a good possibility we're gonna get a downside, okay. Kind of having the little potential double top structure, right? And of course the divergence built in as well. So we're not looking at a major reversal, but I think there's a good possibility this may pull back and retest maybe some of the minor lows over here. Target around 184.50. Okay, but we don't have a sell setup at the moment. Okay, at least not now. But you may have slightly different strategy or entry technique, right? Okay, so for me as a sell setup, of course, ideally we want to see another pushback up, kind of like corrective move like this. That would be a potential sell. Okay, as a breakout. Okay, to wait for the confirmation. Alternatively, if this goes down a little bit more and we wait for the pullback, that would also be a valid sell trade. Okay, so I think overall, the directional focus is quite clear. Okay, in terms of like which has a higher profit potential direction. Definitely on the downside, okay, but in terms of like setups to engage in a trade, I think right now we don't really have anything yet, okay, at least for on pound yen, and similarly here on Aussie yen, right? We kind of have pattern structure here seems to be suggesting a topish kind of pattern, okay, but we don't really have a very clear sign of a rejection to the downside at the moment, okay. So couple of things here to note, right? When we get a clear sense of direction that we can focus, it may not necessarily mean that it's an immediate execution of the trade. The directional bias again suggests to us the overall sense that we want to focus, right? And the idea of it is to really pick a direction with two elements, right? One is of course higher probability, and then the other one is talking about profit potential. Okay, if the downside offers us a bigger reward, then naturally we also want to focus on that, right? But of course we also want to make sure that the probability to that particular direction is high. Okay, so things like for example, the major pairs like euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar, right? Uh, the pattern suggests that it's a high probability to the downside, right? And naturally, that also means the profit potential is bigger. Now, for the yen pairs like pound yen and Aussie yen, the pattern itself is not the best, right? It's not like super high probability is gonna go reverse and go down. Um, but the profit potential suggesting that we're kind of like at the top-ish area, right? We kind of have a little bit of a double top structure. So buying into a double top doesn't make sense at the moment, right? And that's where we kind of like think of, if today I'm gonna focus on the potential trade, right? Where which direction gives me a higher profit potential, right? And for the yen pairs here on pound and the Aussie here, we can clearly see that focusing on the sell direction would naturally give us a bigger profit potential, and therefore we just need to wait for that setup to come to us, right? We need to wait for that conditions to fulfill certain criteria before we can pull the trade. Okay, so just want to highlight a little bit on the details along this. Okay, I think pound Australia will probably just skip it. I think there's nothing really there. Euro cat, potentially we may have a short term kind of like trading the internals of the retracement. We have a bit of a rejection from the top at 1.5045. Okay, the market seems to be consolidating a little bit since the late last week going into this week. So if we can get a corrective pullback, kind of like maybe a lower time frame H1 crawl. Okay, so kind of like lower time frame, this comes down. Okay, this goes back up, and then this forms a crawl around that 618. Then that would be an ideal sell trade, trading the internals of the higher time frame pullback. Okay, so basically something like that, right? So Eurocat, keep an eye on that as well. Okay, you can potentially write on this as a Canadian news trade opportunity on Friday as well, right? So some of these opportunities you can actually combine it with news trade, right? You can use some of the economic data releases as catalysts to execute and pull the trigger. Okay, so Eurocat is one of the potential ones. Okay. Last one to quickly cover here in BTC. We're kind of seeing a little bit of a crawl structure here, which is similar to the euro, pound, and the Aussie dollar, right? So I think short term, we may get some downside. Okay, and I would say some areas to focus naturally would be around that 33,300 to maybe around 34,000, right? So somewhere around 33,300, 400 area to about 34,000. I think that would be a short-term target, okay, for BTC to potentially make a move lower, right? So if you're kind of actively trading the crypto scene, I think Bitcoin may offer you an opportunity this week for a sell trade. Okay, but do take note that next year around April period, we're gonna get another halving. Okay, and historically, post halving. So if you're taking a look like April post of it is then after that is somewhere around May, right? Historically after halving, the price of Bitcoin tends to rally, but before the halving, the price of Bitcoin tends to actually do a major kind of retracement, right? So if you kind of consider that and you look at the price action and look at the pattern right now, it seems to be pretty much aligned. Okay, so at least for the short run, I'm expecting that pullback, right? We have that crawl, we have the massive run, so we're just basically expecting that temporary pullback. Okay, so if you're interested into focusing on Bitcoin here, short term, look for the sell, but closer towards maybe April, May next year, that's where the halving event is going to take place, and that's giving you another opportunity to potentially invest into it for the long run, right? That's where you're going to look to buy. Okay, that's where the buy opportunity is going to come. Okay, so those are a couple of things. Let me very, very quickly take a look at some of the questions over here, right? Okay. Yeah, so Eurocat, we kind of talk about it already. Kiwi cat. Euro odd is very much similar to pound odd. I think there's really nothing there at the moment. Last week we're looking at a potential kind of trade there, right? Right now we don't really get the ideal pattern development, right? I mean, this is not the most ideal setup, okay, for the crawl. Kind of get a breakout and then an instant drop. My take is be a little bit conservative because of what is developing right now, right? So my suggestion on Euro odd is to wait for an impulsive pushback up first, okay? Meaning this move up, wait for a correction, then only you take that trade. Don't take the breakout on the crawl because this doesn't look very neat at the moment. Okay, so basically you give it a bit more time, let the market prove to you that it want to bounce from there. Okay, Kiwi Canadian, not the best. Probably this can develop into something like this as well. So one more pushback up to complete the crawl. Again, very similar to some of the patterns that we talk about, right? In terms of like Aussie dollar, in terms of like euro dollar and pound dollar, kind of have this three wave structure, okay? And this may be completing as a diagonal, okay? So just give it a bit of time. Look out for that structure as I mentioned, right? Maybe a pushback up and then look for a sell with a H1 crawl at the top. Okay, so that's on the Kiwi Cat side of things. Okay. Euro Canadian, I think we cover on that, right? So yeah. Okay, overall direction is sell. But if this is gonna go up a little bit more in a corrected structure, then that will be perfect. Okay. Good. Yeah, so I see pound cat, we kind of talk about that. Let me just see. Pound cat. Yeah, pound cat is not the nicest structure at the moment, right? Just based on what's developing. When I see something like that, I'll tend to just avoid it, right? Especially areas like, things like this is just very hard to trade, right? You can see this up, down, up, right? Here as well. Okay, so I think right now for pound cat, probably I would leave it aside. Okay, just let the market develop and then we'll come back another time. Yeah, Aussie franc is basically still developing the structure. I think the overall structure on this did not really change, right? Yeah, so if you're looking at Aussie franc, can keep an eye on this area. I mean, right now the market's testing that already. If you go down to the lower time frame, maybe you want to consider more of like a potential sell stop breakout entry. Maybe you can take reference from this here. Okay, and there's a little bit of a topish formation, right? So yeah, I think Aussie franc is overall still downside. I mean, market didn't really move a lot last week, right? So I think Aussie franc will kind of take a look like last week. The structure overall did not really change. I think that's still the downside opportunity over here. Okay, so yeah, if you kind of use the parallel channel to give you a little bit of visual reference, something like this. Yeah. Okay. Yep, so that's an Aussie franc. Okay. Kiwi yen, not the yen pair that I'll potentially want to focus too much on. The reason is because of this V-shaped formation right now. Okay. So I think out of the yen pairs, probably focus on something else, other than the Kiwi yen, right? Because I think the others are giving us a little bit nicer suggestion in terms of the pattern structure that price is developing. Okay. Let's take a look at some of the index over here. Starting with Hang Seng. Okay. Hang Seng came back to the bottom of the channel right now. Okay. And we kind of see this completion of a potential 1, 2, 3. So I would say short term, right now, just based on this pattern, okay, of a channel here, we can expect maybe a deeper pullback. So this structure here, however, okay, doesn't seem to suggest upside, right? Uh, for an upside to happen, this needs to go impulsive, okay, a correction here, then that would start to build a possibility of an upside. Uh, but that's going to be required the market to, you know, really develop further and see how it's going to move on, right? But for now, the primary forecast is likely going to be expecting this maybe to come back up correctively first. Okay, so if you're looking at that trade to the upside, it's definitely something more of a shorter term, and of course, you need to really keep track on the development of things. If this goes correctively, then that is building into a bigger possibility of a break to the downside and retest this low. Okay, so that's my take on Hang Seng. Yeah, right. US 30, I think, is pretty much similar to the S&P, right? I think the US market, more or less, the three of it is quite similar. Okay, so yeah, if you kind of look at like similar pattern, right? So I think bullish, but you want to wait for the pullback first, which is like unlikely gonna get anything today. I mean this week. Okay. FTSE. Okay, FTSE is carrying very similar pattern to, I mean, overall pattern to the Hang Seng itself. Kind of seeing that this maybe the development of things, right? So kind of get an impulsive drop. So this may continue correct, and then this may go back up one time, and then this may still come back down, retest the bottom. Okay, so yeah, I think the corrective phase is still in development, pretty much similar to Hang Seng. Okay, so this two equities market, you probably just want, if you're gonna trade it, right, you need to definitely pay a bit more attention to that. Observe, you know, at least on a day-to-day basis, how the price is developing to give you more clue in the overall directional, right? Is it going to be shifting and sort of, right? So I think Hang Seng and FTSE, in my own personal opinion, right, when I look at charts like that, um, unless I have really nothing else to be focusing on, then I'll maybe come to look out for these two trades here. But if I have other opportunities that are giving me a little bit clearer structure, clearer patterns that, you know, would help me in determining the direction, timing my execution and things like that, right? Which I require maybe less effort in monitoring. I would definitely focus on those first, right? Yeah, so that's my take on this few index itself. Okay. Chef Yan. Okay, Chef Yan may not give us a very clear clue, at least to the midterm, but short term, this is definitely a crawl. So we may get kind of like a pullback here, but of course, this pullback can also develop into something like this, you know. That's where I say, towards the midterm, we need to continue to observe how the market's going to develop. But for now, this little crawl here suggests that we may see a short-term pushback down. Okay, how this comes down will give us clue whether this is going to go back up and retest the top, or this can actually go down and break that low to give us the bigger pattern like this. All right. Yeah, so you need to continue to monitor market as it progresses, right? Because as the market progresses, sometimes it drops for the clue as to like which pattern is likely going to develop, right? Which one has a higher probability of developing. Okay, yeah, I think overall we kind of cover all aspects, right? Okay, Kiwi dollar, we didn't really get that pullback. The market just basically moved higher from there. Right now we're testing that. I think this is very much similar to Aussie. Okay, in fact, most of the major, right? Euro, pound, Aussie, um, Kiwi, it basically developed the same things, right? So overall direction definitely downside. Very nice little divergence there as well. Just look for entry execution, right? So depending on your trade plan, depending on the style that you're more inclined to, how you're gonna execute that trade. But I think the higher probability direction on these few majors are definitely focusing on the downside this week. Okay, yeah. So yeah, hope overall has been clear, right? Definitely we have a couple of, I would say, high probability opportunities to keep watch. We have nothing straight off from today, but to start off the week, we do have definitely a couple of things to keep an eye on. Okay, and you know, going into tomorrow, depending on how the market develops, we may get those opportunities available. Okay, yeah, so that's all from me for today's session. Kind of hope that it gives you some idea into planning the week. All right, I think I missed out Aussie. Is it Aussie? Australian market. Okay, cool. So Aussie here, this may have completed the three wave pullback. Um, so what is the confirmation is if this forms a H1 lower time frame crawl, that would be a buy setup. If you don't get a H1 crawl, then you must wait for the V shape. Okay. The last scenario here is if this forms a corrective move, then there is no buy because that means that this would likely continue to drop first. Okay. So I would say definitely is at a key area, or say key point in time where you want to observe how is it going to develop, right? Because if you can get a crawl, we have a buy. If you get a V, we also have a buy, but we'll just need to wait for the correction pullback. If you don't get either of that, then there's nothing. There's no trade. All right, so that's my take on Aussie. Okay, good. Okay, so that's all for me for today. Last thing here, since you guys are currently watching it, right? Together with everything trading, we are currently having a live trading room. For now, it's free for everyone. Okay, so all you need to do is actually go over to everythingtrading.com. Let me just very quickly bring you over everythingtrading.com. Okay, go and register for an account, right? So you click on join ET Plus today. Okay, it's loading a little bit. Register for your free account. Okay, so if you scroll down over here, you can see this one, right? This is basically free. Once you sign up, put in your email, put in your name, put in your contact number, you'll be able to log in. Okay, let me just very quickly show you as well. Okay, once you log in, what we're doing right now with everything trading is, from my side, every Tuesday, I'll be running a London live session in Mandarin, in Chinese, right? So over here, you can see the next upcoming one is oops, over here, sorry, here. Okay, sorry. So this coming Tuesday I don't have, right? So my session this week is, okay, let me double check. Over here, sorry. Okay, so you just follow this calendar, right? This week here, my session is here on Thursday. Now we have other speaker over here as well, you can see, right? Basically right now it's free. So you can definitely leverage on this opportunity to quickly, join in and enjoy some of this session over here while it's still free. Okay. I mean, from my side, I can't promise that this is gonna be free forever. Okay, but at least for now, this is free. So go and register your account, and then check out the timing of various sessions over here, and then you can actually join in accordingly. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's all from me for today. All the best for the week itself in the markets, and we'll see how it develops. And as usual, we're gonna come back next week, same time again, to keep you guys updated. Okay, so that's all for me. All the best, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Okay. Okay, see you guys. Bye bye.